taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Kia Sorento. Now, there are technically two different clusters that are available. So it's either going to be this 12.3-inch digital, or there's a smaller 4.2-inch instead. I haven't been in one with the smaller cluster, but if that one's available, check down in the description of this video to find a walkthrough on that one. But let's dive in. I'll show you everything that you need to know. So the steering wheel inside the vehicle is heated, and the button to turn it on is just down the center stack. There are two unique levels, and it's heated pretty much all the way around, which is amazing. Adjusting the steering wheel is done just by your left knee. So there's a release there, and it's telescoping. So in, out, up, and down to find that perfect position. Once you do, click it, lock it back into place. Now, there's so much to know, but you've got the option of adjusting what's going on with your lamps here. You're going to be in auto mode the majority of the time. What you could do in auto mode is push forward in order to go into an auto high beam mode. So what's going to happen is if the vehicle recognizes that your high beams are needed, it's automatically going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. So it's very good from that perspective. If you want to permanently lock your high beams out, just go into the top light mode instead. And then in that top light mode, you're going to push away in order to get your high beams going, pull towards you to turn them off. But when you're in the auto mode, you can also flash your high beams out that way instead. Then if you've got fog lamps, you can also toggle your fog lamps on or off by using the switch along the top here instead. Then along the right side, you've also got the option of adjusting your wipers. You can adjust into different levels there. In the auto mode, you can adjust this way in order to adjust how fast the rain is hitting the windshield. But in the auto mode, rain sensing wipers are also available. Straightforward. And then on the tip of that right stick, you can also turn on your rear wiper there as well. Now you can also have it linked so that if your front wipers are going and then you go into reverse, the back wiper will turn on automatically. You can adjust that through the infotainment system. There's one other cool thing with the left stick. There's also the option for the blind spot view monitor. So it's going to utilize the side mounted cameras to show you what's going on inside of your blind spot. Very, very cool system. It's not standard across the entire vehicle lineup, but still really nice to know that that is available there as an option. And then boatload of different buttons. So along the right side, you've got smart cruise control. So you can toggle it on this way. You could then increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time. If cruise was going, you could hit the middle button there in order to pause or resume. You can hit the brake in order to pause and then push in order to resume. And then there's a distance indicator. So it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. But if you want to walk through on how this system actually works, check down in the description of the video. I've put together a comprehensive video showing you how it's done. The one thing I will point out about this system is that it's strictly smart cruise control. So you don't have the option of going to a traditional cruise control instead. And then you've got a series of other buttons here, including the one on the very bottom here. And that one is going to be for a lane keeping or a lane following system. It's a great system. So what it's going to do is if you are driving and it recognizes the lane markings, so you'll notice that it goes green right there on your steering wheel. And what that means is that it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. Very, very smart system. There's a lane keeping system you can toggle on in the infotainment that's going to nudge you back into your lane. But this one, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you drive. So if you lose focus for a second, it can take you around bends as well. It's a very great system. And then you've got some pages buttons to go through the cluster screen, which I'll show you in a second. From here, a series of other buttons along the left side. So you've got a voice command prompt. You'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice. You can adjust the climate, open and close the windows. There are so many things that you can do. So one thing that I recommend is that when you get your Kia, hit that button and then hit commands. And that tells you absolutely everything that you can do inside of the vehicle using your voice. Change songs, radio stations, navigate, like I said, open and close windows, and so many other things. There's also a phone here, so you can answer or hang up on a phone call. You could adjust your volume here if you'd like to, so push up. If you wanted to mute, you could push the button in the middle there in order to mute out, and then lower your volume there as well. There are two custom buttons here. So mode is going to let you change between all of your active sources. So AM, FM, Sirius XM, whatever the case may be. You can also customize that through the infotainment system. So under setup, buttons, you can adjust your different steering wheel buttons there if you'd like to. So your mode button jumps you between all of your available sources. And then your other custom button is going to let you do a few different things. So I have it set up right now in order to go back to the home screen. So if I hit that button there, it's going to bring me back to the home screen there instead. So you can customize that button to do what you'd like. And then you can also go up and down this way as well. And that is, you can see it off of the screen there, jumping you between all of your available stations essentially. If you go to FM, push down, it's going to jump you between all of your available presets. And then if you do a push and hold of that button instead, it's going to act as a seek button instead, which is kind of cool. So you can seek out to different stations a boatload of different ways. And then you've got paddle shifters. So you're minus on the left-hand side, plus on the right-hand side. This version of the Sorento, boom, also has the little hand shifter, so it can drop down and go into a manual mode this way instead. So whether you use paddles or whether you adjust it this way, it works the exact same way. But if you want to walk through on how paddle shifters actually work, check down in the description of this video for a full walkthrough. But it is so much fun once you get the hang of it. Then moving into the cluster screen, there are a boatload of options here as well. So you've got your current gas level there. So as of right now, I've got 555 kilometers left. What drive mode that you're in. So down the center stack, you can adjust between either different drive or terrain modes. So there's normal, eco, sport, and smart. And then the modes here are going to do things. So sport mode, it's going to hold on to your RPM. So rather than shifting at, let's say, 2,000 RPMs, it might shift at 3,000 plus RPM. So it gives you an infinitely sportier performance in comparison. You've got different terrain modes that are available as well. And those are going to play with traction and stability control too. So you've got a little bit of flexibility here, which is kind of nice. You've got whether or not the auto start stop system is turned on. You can turn that on or off down the center stack. Your current temperature, what gear you're currently in. So whether that's park, reverse, neutral, drive, etc. But you can see here, this one has the full sensing system all the way around. So you can see those front sensors, side sensors, whatever the case may be, which is super useful. And one other cool thing is that the side view mirrors, when you shift into reverse, have a cool little auto tilt function as well. But you can see what's going on with your traditional tachometer there. So speedometer, tachometer, and then you've got some different safety settings. So that one's going to be the lane following system. So if that was turned off on the steering wheel, you can see that that button goes away, and then that's a lane keeping system, which is turned on or off through the infotainment system. And then you've got your pages button to go between a bunch of different options. Ooh, forgot tachometer, or your total, I should say, odometer along the bottom right. So that's the total number of kilometers or miles that you've driven. But pushing this button jumps you between 3 different pages. So your current trip is from when the car was last turned off and then back on again. Moving down brings you to since refueling. So when you've filled up the vehicle or added some gas in, what range have you gotten so far there? And then you've got since your total last reset. So since I picked this vehicle up, I've driven over 2 hours, 66 kilometers, and I've averaged 11.8 liters per 100. So those numbers are going to change dynamically. You'll see that there's this little notch right by the 10. And what that means is that I'm averaging exactly that, 10.8. So as your fuel economy gets worse in Canada, you're going to go off to the right. As it gets better, you're going to go off to the left. That's the exact opposite down in the States, but works the same way. And then you've got a few different options. But in some of these screens, like since refueling or your reset, if you push and hold the button here, that's going to reset it to back to 0 instead. And then you've got since your total last reset. So think of that as your total trip 1 counter. You can see your auto start stop, nothing exciting there. Your tire pressure, as you go to drive, you'll see those tire pressure numbers displayed. Which wheel is getting which amount of power. You might notice that some wheels are getting power on the highway if you're just cruising. And then it goes back to this one. And then you can go back to this screen, which there's no active route going. So it's only going to show your GPS coordinates. But if you had an active route going, so let's go and we're going to search for a random gas station here. And let's go start guidance. Watch this.
The guidance will start now.
So cool. So it's not full mapping cluster, but still having those turn-by-turn directions that gives you a heads up of where you have to go is pretty useful. And then when you exit out, that's just going to bring you back to your compass view instead. And then pushing this button gives you to this option here. So with this one enabled, it's kind of neat. So on the highway, it gives you a few different looks. So these lines on the outside are going to go green when it recognizes the markings. And then with that centering system turned on, keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane. As cars come up next to you, you'll get a notification here letting you know that somebody's in your blind spot, and then you'll see boxes moving by you or pass by you there as you drive. It's really cool. If you're just on residential streets, these won't go green, but parts of the car might, and that just denotes that certain systems are enabled. Now, if you push and hold OK on this screen, that's going to jump you in to a series of advanced settings inside of the infotainment system. So there are so many things like driver convenience settings that are available. You can adjust so many different things here. But if you want a full walkthrough on the infotainment, you'll find it down in the description. The few things that I will point out, you can adjust the screen layout here. So as of right now, I'm in the simple look, but do you want simple or circle? So do you want your traditional speedometer and tachometer there instead? And as you jump between different modes, that customizes it even more, which is kind of nice. And then you could link it. So let's say, as of right now, it's a link to your drive mode. But let's say if you love the functionality of eco mode to get the best possible performance, or the best possible range, I should say, but you love the look of the sport mode, you can lock it out one way or the other if you'd like to. Moving back, you can adjust certain things of the cluster as well. So you can adjust the cluster screen brightness. There's a button just down by your left knee that you can utilize in order to adjust your brightness that way instead. And then there's also the option for a blue light filter. And that just makes it a little bit easier to see the screens later on at night. You can have it come on automatically or come on during a certain time instead. But you can adjust all of these things yourself manually if you'd like to. So I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the digital cluster screen inside of the Kia Sorento.